I suppose from the performance of Rishi Sunak, were we looking at a man who thinks, I'm not going to win this anyway, I'm going to go for broke on this because his performance was actually very good?
Well, I mean, his performance has always been better in all of the hustings and the TV debates. He's been the stronger performer. I think it simply hasn't mattered because what he's been saying has not been saleable to Conservative activists who are tired of hearing caution, who think we've been in office for 12 years and they want someone to be bolder. But no, absolutely, if you're watching last night, and I was there to see the last one, he was streets ahead in terms of the way he handled questions, the way he handled the audience. He's the stronger performer.
He hasn't been downcast, though, by the fact that he knows he's going to lose. I mean, he must know. And I read this week that he's been saying to people, I've won the argument. I might not have won this contest, but I think for right-minded people, they see that I told you so.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a case where in a couple of years' time, if he keeps his powder dry, especially if Liz Truss's plans turn out to be inflationary and all the rest of it, it might be the case that everyone's looking back and going, actually, Rishi Sunak had the right of that argument. And then, who knows, if the Conservatives lose the 2024 election and they have another leadership contest, the fourth in 8 years, maybe he'll be able to run again. So I think he's come out of this quite strong.
All of that being said, Liz Truss hasn't yet become the leader. And, the spirit of fairness, let's give her a chance before we completely denigrate her. She's going to take her time before she comes out with a fiscal event.
Just think, what would the reaction be if she didn't win within the Conservatives?
It would be cosmically funny. It would be absolutely hilarious because so many people...
meltdown.
Yeah, so many people have bet their careers on Liz Truss winning, and that's why her, lots of her campus snowballed. And if she lost, it would just be,
But lots of criticism that not enough has been done in this period, this so-called zombie government. But we are told that, behind closed doors, that Nadhim Zahawi's working away. The Chief Secretary to the Treasury has also come up with a plan for both of them, whoever wins.
But Isabel, that's not the point. The point is, there's 7 weeks of blankness. There is nobody making public statements.
It's a mistake.
And so if Nadhim Zahawi is working away, we have got to be informed because people are frightened and there is a complete vacuum.
In fairness, she comes in, presumably she's winning on Monday, in office from Tuesday, and she's going to take a couple of weeks before she comes out with her fiscal event. But she could turn around and say to everyone, it's OK, I've got this under control in 3 weeks' time. We should wait, shouldn't we, to see what she has to say?
Well, I want her to say it on Monday. Is she going to say it on Monday?
No, because she can't. Because it's ultimately, if you want her to say it on Monday, what you get is you'll get a plan drawn up by her campaign team rather than the Treasury.
Right.
And I would personally rather that she takes the time to have the plan.
The Treasury have been working during the summer.
Precisely, but she currently doesn't have access to the full might of the civil service because she's not Prime Minister. And so I think it's reasonable that she takes a couple of weeks to make sure that that plan is actually drawn up by...
What are we thinking? Possibly third week in September?
Probably, yeah. Now,
Dear God, are you telling me that the UK public have now got to wait another 3 weeks before they know what this plan is to get us through winter?
Probably, because the alternative is simply that you have a plan drawn up by 5 of her interns.
That's bad.
Yeah, precisely. Ultimately, it is a problem that the contest has been this long and the delay is not good. But if you want a good policy, you really do need it drawn up by the full might of government, not by some 25-year-olds on her campaign team.
Hear what you're saying, Henry. Stay there, my friend. I'd like now to go to the opposition, the Shadow Secretary of State for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. That's Jonathan Reynolds, MP. Jonathan, good morning to you. Taking part in this.
Good morning.
It just beggars belief. It beggars belief, I'm not sitting here supporting your party or whatever. I'm simply saying, who the heck is in charge of this country while Boris Johnson's dressing up as pretending to be a policeman yesterday? So we've got this lad here from Conservative Home, Henry Hill, telling us that, and for very good reasons, that we may not hear a plan being announced from the leader, whoever that may be, for another 3 weeks.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with your assessment of that, as you might expect. I mean, I think the contest for the new Prime Minister would have been indulgent at this length in relatively benign times, but in the kind of crisis that we are in, it's frankly unforgivable. I thought Henry was very honest and very fair, but, I mean, a lot of the conversation has been about the impact on households, quite rightly, and that people desperately need to know we will get through the winter, hence our policy of freezing the cap as it is. But, for businesses who aren't covered by the cap, they're getting these new higher bills, these extreme higher bills right now, and they need some relief. And unless they're given some hope for the future, I'm afraid there is a real prospect of businesses simply shutting up shop, going out of business, with massive implications for employment, for tax revenue, and of course for the people who run those businesses who've not had an easy few years at all.
Okay,
So I just cannot
well,
believe
a blind man
we're
on a
talking about the
galloping
middle of
horse
September
could
before even
see...
announcing anything. Don't forget,
Jonathan, wait a minute. So basically, let's get to the point. What are you proposing?
Well, we need some immediate help for those businesses now. So the starting point should be cutting business rates. We would increase the threshold for small business rates, relief to £25,000. So you're immediately getting help and hope to people that there will be some relief on the bills they've got to pay. For energy-intensive businesses, this is very important. We've got a fund in our plans with the windfall tax for £1 billion of support in a relief fund for those. If you think about that, the real danger there is if you look at, say, the fertiliser plants in this country, they're not running. They can't afford to run. So you're putting into next year the inflation, the cost of food going up even further because they can't operate because fertiliser will therefore be more expensive next year. So you've got to get some help to all businesses. You've got to focus specifically on energy intensives. But as well as that, of course, we wouldn't have gone ahead with that large rise to national insurance, which alone was a bill of around £7 billion for British businesses in terms of employers' national insurance. So they need some immediate help now. And I don't see why some sort of announcement like that couldn't be made now, given people surely recognise the scale of the crisis.
Just would like to just come back to Henry Hill, who's sitting here and who's he's very sympathetic, I think, towards Rishi here, the man behind the national insurance rise. And you heard Jonathan saying there, look, Labour would not go ahead with this, but Sunak still says that he would implement that.
Yeah, I don't personally support the rise, but I think Rishi's point is, you know, the NHS is under huge pressure. The inflation is eroding public sector budgets. You need something to pay for that NHS rise, otherwise you're just going to have to borrow it. And so the whole point of the national insurance increase is it was supposed to be hypothecated directly to the NHS budget.
But isn't Jonathan Reynolds saying that they would fund this through the windfall tax? Is that not an option that could be extended? Because at the moment it's quite a limited windfall tax
Well, I mean, they're funding that through the windfall tax. They're also funding, apparently, a freeze of the energy price cap through the windfall tax. Freezing the energy price cap is the most expensive way of doing it because you subsidise demand. So a windfall tax is good, but it can only fund so much because it's a one-off tax, and I think Labour maybe end up spending more of it than they bring in.
Okay, let's give Jonathan the chance to come back on that point then. I mean, you know, it's very easy to spend this windfall tax time and again. Do you think that you have fully costed cutting this national insurance rise? Because, you know, we can't really, as a country, afford to borrow anymore, can we? We're just kicking the problem down the road for future generations.
Well, just to be clear on that, Isabel, so the windfall tax is part of the funding for freezing energy bills, freezing the cap as it is. The national insurance rise is something slightly different. What we oppose is, first of all, that money was supposed to be for social care, and as Henry correctly said, actually isn't. It initially goes to the health service. And for funding for the health service and social care, we don't believe it's correct to simply raise that money from working people. If you're going to raise money for public services, as you need to do, that should also come from people who get income from equity, from property, from landlords. Simply putting it just on working people, we believe is unfair and unsustainable. So we'd have a different solution, a broader tax base for that. The windfall tax specifically is about funding that freeze in energy bills for everybody so that people can get through the winter. Because frankly, otherwise, I can't see a way through it.
Yeah, fine. Look, finally, because we are running out of time, your thoughts on Sizewell C? Some speculation Boris Johnson could pull a bit of a rabbit out of the hat on his last week in office as Prime Minister. Something of a legacy move for the future, something you'd support?
Well, yes, we support new nuclear. We believe that that's got to be an essential part of the system. We're particularly keen on small modular reactors. So I think I particularly want to know, in any nuclear project, you've got to know what is the cost, what is the price you're able to get at. That's what I'd want to know before I agreed on any business case. But in principle, yes, we support new nuclear and new nuclear at that site.
Jonathan, just a couple of things I want to know. One is, you know, you would increase small business rates relief. You put that up. You know, there's nobody doubting what you're saying in terms of the pressures on small businesses, but you would put that up to about 25k. But tell me, who loses out on that? Where does business relief go to? Does it go to, where do business rates go? Central government or local authorities? And my point I'm trying to make is if they don't go to local authorities, then local services would suffer, would they not?
No, we correct that. So we raise the revenue instead, and by raising what's called the digital services tax, that's a tax on the revenues of online search engines and marketplaces. Now, business rates are slightly complicated. There are some parts of the country where it is devolved to a city region, and that money then goes to local services. So the government could make that up by increasing digital services tax. In other places, simply local authorities collect that money, then it goes to central government, and they then redistribute it across the country. But we're very confident there'll be no impact on local services. We'd get the revenue forgone through raising that threshold from an increase in digital services tax, and therefore there wouldn't be any impact on service level funding at all.
Okay, at least we know where you stand. You're making that loud, you're making it proud, and you're offering support for small businesses which don't have these caps. A scary one I've heard this morning is that hospitals around the land could face an increase of £2 million a month in their energy bills. Now, surely that's something that we cannot allow to come out of existing clinical budgets, which would mean cuts in services, operations, cuts in staff for the National Health Service. £2 million a month per hospital in the land, increased energy.
Yes, well, that's an absolutely fair point, and I think it'd be true, unfortunately, across much of the public sector. Schools as well, when schools go back, will face similar problems. I would simply say one thing I think is slightly different for the argument I'm putting forward around businesses is, I mean, obviously businesses are essential for the people they employ, for the services and goods they provide, but they are also our tax base. So unless we are able to make sure businesses themselves can get through this crisis, well, frankly, there may be a wider impact on public service funding in future. So I don't in any way diminish or accept fully the point you're making about big elements of public service, hospitals, schools, and so on. But I think right now we've also got to have a message of hope for the future for businesses and some real measures we can implement straight away that would make their lives better.
Yeah, thanks for making the distinction on that.